You are listening to The Squeeze with Anthony Pasquesi, produced by Andy Alleman on KSMR Radio, broadcasting live on 92.5 FM on campus and 94.3 FM in Winona, Minnesota, as well as online at smumn.edu/KSMR. KSMR, real college radio. Welcome to The Squeeze with Anthony Pasquesi. As I just said, we are broadcasting over two radio frequencies in Winona, 92.5 and 94.3 FM every Sunday from 11 to 1 o'clock. We're also live streaming on YouTube under the channel name Anthony Pasquesi, Pasqueesi. Be sure to like and subscribe if you are watching us there. Also, feel free to join the conversation through the chat function of the YouTube live stream. You can follow the show on Twitter at TheSqueeze4. You can follow Andy Alleman at Andy Alleman and myself at _Anthony Pass with one S. As always, we love to take your calls. Our phone number is 507-457-1615. Andy Alleman is sitting in for Alec Rude, who is our typical producer. Andy, thank you so much for coming out of the bullpen, as we like to say.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure to be on the Squeeze, talk some sports.
Absolutely. Talk some sports. And the phone number is 507-457-1615. And that is the number that you're going to call if you want to win one of these snazzy Squeeze t-shirts. And the way you win those is through the 16-second squeeze. The 16-second squeeze is your chance to win a Squeeze t-shirt. How does it work? Well, you call in and go up against a recording of a St. Mary's student in a quick thinking trivia game where you name as many of one category as you can. Every show has up to 3 caller contestants, and the one with the largest margin of victory over their respective recording wins that Squeeze t-shirt. I'm wearing the shirt right now. Andy owns one for a couple of his. You don't have one? How have I never given you a Squeeze t-shirt?
We just never got around to it.
How have you never said that you don't have a Squeeze
I
t-shirt?
just figured I'd get one eventually.
You've been on the show 4 times. I mean, come on. Why didn't you say anything?
I'll get one eventually. No worries.
I can't believe I didn't get you a Squeeze t-shirt.
We're all right.
I feel like you're lying.
I'm not lying.
Okay.
Seriously.
My apologies. I guess Andy doesn't even have a Squeeze t-shirt. I'll have to get him one eventually. I only have a couple left, so you're going to have to wait for the black edition to come
I
out.
wanted the black edition.
Okay, is that what it was? Okay,
You
maybe
said
you're one of those people.
The black was coming in. I was like, you know what? That seems pretty cool. I think I'll grab one when the time comes around.
Okay, perfect. So there you go. I owe you a black Squeeze t-shirt.
There we go.
But we do have the white ones right now. Coming up later in the show, we have Donnie Nadeau at 11:22. We're going to talk about some SMU baseball at 11:45. Coach Nick Larson of the cross country and track team here at St. Mary's is on at 12:20. And then we're going to have a Sports City draft. Something that I like to do with my multiple radio wives when they come in is have a little draft, throw it up on Twitter, and see who wins. So we're going to do a Sports City draft. I have a feeling both of us know the number one pick in that draft, so it's going to come down to the coin flip of who wins. What city is it? 3, 2, 1, Boston. Okay, yeah. So we have the same draft board, I think, for the most part. So whoever wins that coin flip may win the entire draft, to be honest, because Boston is far beyond the best sports city in America. Well, as I said, Alec Rude is not sitting in this chair next to me. It is Andy Alleman. Andy is a senior here on the track team. He's a sprinter. And what major are you at, Andy? I almost called you Alec.
Well, we're bio, pre-PT. I'll be graduating in the spring with that, along with a sports business minor.
Oh, wow. So that's you're a smart dude. I didn't realize it. You've been in all my sports business classes, so I thought maybe you were on my IQ level.
I've been working a little bit of both sides of the fence. So
absolutely, that's the smart way to go about things. And Alec Rude is another smart guy. He is actually currently playing tennis against St. John's, I believe. I honestly could not care less about tennis or what Alec is doing right now. All I know is that he's not here, so we really shouldn't care about him. But no, Alec Rude is going to be missed these next 3 weeks. We'll see how Andy does today. This is kind of his audition to see if he gets to come out of the bullpen next week.
You got it.
I mean, I guess you see, it's symbiotic. You're doing me a favor, but also it's pretty fun. I mean,
I'm enjoying it.
It's fun to be a radio producer.
I was looking forward to it. Absolutely.
I mean, a couple weeks ago when I got sick, he was going to come on. He was super excited about it, and then I had to pull the plug. So this has been a long time coming. Hopefully the show goes well today, Andy. I told you about my weekend a little earlier. I'll say it after I ask you. How was your weekend?
You know, it was good. Friday night, we were working on some homework, some stuff for a couple different business classes. Saturday, went to go watch my sister in high school's meet over at UW La Crosse. And then went and hung out with some friends over in La Crosse, enjoyed the nice weather and some March Madness. And then went out and grilled some steaks with my family, watched some basketball. Couldn't think of a better time to spend a weekend.
Yeah, it's got to be nice. So you're from Wisconsin.
I am from Arcadia.
Arcadia.
Is where I'm, as my area. So yeah, we're right along the river here, right about 20, 30 minutes from here is my house. So
wow, 20, 30 minutes. That would be nice. It'd be nice. I mean, the problem would be I'd probably go home every single weekend if my home was that close. My home is in Chicago, 4.5 hours away. But a steak with the family sounds pretty good.
It hit the spot. It hit the spot.
I'm sure it does. That's something that the CAF here has stepped it up this year. I will admit they've stepped it up quite a bit, but there's almost never any red meat.
Nope. They kind of lack in red meat.
Yeah,
they do. I will say I enjoy the turkey. They do a really good job with the turkey.
Yeah.
But yeah, some steaks every once in a while. Those are spendy, but I think some steaks every once in a while would be appreciated.
It would be kind of nice. But hey, the chicken breast is great. That's something that we asked for last year that we finally got. Was just a plain protein option. I'd say almost every meal nowadays, at least this year, we have some sort of pork loin or some sort of chicken breast, and
it's good.
Yeah,
I enjoy it.
Absolutely.
It's just not it's not what you can get.
It's not
Hy-Vee or Midtown.
It's not great. It's not the best, but hey,
it gets the job done.
It gets the job done. It fills our bellies. And if you just wrap everything in spinach, then you don't taste what the food actually tastes like, and you just taste spinach. That's how I eat it.
Bada bing, bada bang.
Yeah, absolutely. So your weekend full of family fun and some March Madness. My weekend, just the March Madness part. Not a lot of family fun. I was alone here on campus, and I locked myself in my room, as I am wont to do, and I watched nothing but college basketball. I did a little bit of laundry. I ate out a little bit too much. I went to Chipotle on Friday, and then I ate El Patron last night. So eating out a bit too much. I'm sure Niels won't like the sound of that.
But you know what? It's that time of year.
It is that time of year. It is that time of year. March Madness Thursday got started on Thursday in the first round. Sadly, we were or at least I was at a high school track meet.
I was too.
Okay, you were too, hosting. Man, that was a bummer. First night of March Madness killed the buzz just a bit, but
you know what? Friday was filled with a lot of good games, a
lot
of upsets. I think it was the better of the 2 days that day.
That's true.
That between the round of 64.
Yeah, I mean, however, we did miss Ja Morant's great performance. We saw a lesser performance yesterday. You're going to talk about that in just a moment. After I stand on my little soapbox, here we go. March Madness is one of the greatest times of year. I'm totally okay with saying it. I agree with it. I spent if you add up all the hours that I watched college basketball on Friday and Saturday and even Thursday, it's probably close to 20 hours at this point of just sitting in front of a TV, watching CBSSports.com buffer as much as it possibly can, and watching a round ball go in a round hoop. I very much enjoy March Madness, just the whole,
You know what? It's probably one of the greatest days in sports, period.
Absolutely. It's one of the greatest weekends in sports. It's 64 teams down to 16 in 4 days. That's, pretty remarkable. You can't beat it at all. But something that happens around March Madness is the thing that I get a little bit annoyed with, and that is the filling out of March Madness brackets. Now, it's something that is just kind of fun to do. You join some pools, you join some team pools, some office pools, class pools, whatever it is. In high school, it was way bigger of a deal than I think it is now in college. And everybody becomes a college basketball expert. Now, this is my soapbox, and I'm just going to take a little bit of time to say it because it bugs me every year, and I finally have a microphone to talk about it. You are not a college basketball expert, Andy Allen. I am not a college basketball expert whatsoever. You personally don't know one college basketball expert, nor do I, nor will I ever unless I make it in this business. But for some reason, every one of us thinks that we are a college basketball expert. The way I go about filling out my bracket is basically, okay, this team's a higher seed. Is this really going to upset happen? Who has the better team? Who is the better singular player? Which teams have been doing well in the past? Which ones do I remember? And that's about how I fill out my bracket. Then as I listen to podcasts and hear other people talk and see some statistics, I alter it a bit, maybe just a tiny bit. But in reality, I don't know what's going to happen any more than you know what's going to happen.
Exactly.
But we all sit at the cafeteria lunch table or in sports marketing class, and we all sit around the table and say, my bracket's correct. My Final Four is 100% good because of this, and this. And then on the first day, everybody's wrong. I think there's seven? There's two. There's two perfect brackets remaining after last night.
One, I believe, is on CBS and one is on Yahoo.
And so 2 out of the millions of brackets that were submitted are still correct. So I just want to say, this is the soapbox. You are not a March Madness expert. I am not a March Madness expert.
Correct.
Nobody is. Nobody will be. So stop thinking that your bracket is going to be perfect, because I promise you that it is not. There we go. Soapbox over. Kick it out. Andy, tell me about Ja Morant.
Ja Morant. So he kind of had a bit of an up and down weekend. On Thursday, he had a triple double. Beat Marquette. Marquette, of course, was sliding, and Murray State was surging. They had to win their conference tournament in order to make it in, and they did that. Look, in my eyes, the kid's a stud, and I think he will be a better pro than Zion Williamson. And why I say that, he fits today's NBA perfectly. Shoot threes, pass the ball. It's a guards league these days, and I think that he's going to be the next big thing. So that's my thought on Ja Morant.
So Ja Morant, like I said, had an awesome game on Thursday night. Sadly, we missed it against Marcus Brown and the Marcus Howard and the Marquette Golden Eagles?
Yes.
Marquette Golden Eagles. He had a triple-double, awesome game, and his stock was rising absolutely out of control. And then Saturday rolls around, Florida State comes to town, and the Seminoles absolutely shut him down. He got off to an awesome start, 5 for 5 from behind the arc, and he's not even really a three-point shooter. It was amazing to see what this guy was doing. And then he felt himself a little bit too much, and I tweeted about it, got some flack a little bit on Twitter, but he started, flexing. He started saying, look at me, look at me, look at me. He lost that teammate aspect of his game. He's a point guard. He needs to pass the ball. He needs to trust his teammates. And right after he made that 5th three on the next possession, he throws the ball out of bounds, doesn't take credit for throwing it out of bounds, doesn't take credit for the turnover, and he goes straight to yelling at his teammate. And from that moment on, I started watching Ja Morant with a little bit of a jaded view. I would agree with you that he had, I don't think Zion Williamson should be the second pick. I think he's far and beyond the best player in this draft. But the way he played on Thursday, maybe Ja Morant has a chance to be a better pro.
Yep.
He's not going to go before Zion, but maybe that 6'3" frame is going to age a little bit better than Zion Williamson's beast of a frame.
Yep.
So after that, I started looking at Ja Morant with that jaded view of, man, he doesn't look like too good of a teammate. He's kind of dogging it out there. He doesn't really like getting in front of people on defense.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I kind of lost. I lost some stock in Ja Morant as a Bulls fan. He's most likely one of the people that we're going to be able to draft. One of the players that we're going to be able to draft. Not we. The Bulls are going to be able to draft. Don't get me wrong. I'd love it if he's a Bull next year, but he lost a little bit of his shine to me.
And I think when you look at that, he's going to be in a veteran locker room too. I think that he's going to have a lot of really good structure on him. Right now, you can tell he's a team leader. They go as far as Ja Morant goes, and that was demonstrated this weekend between his up performance and his down performance. I will also mention, put Joey Hauser on a poster. Did you see that?
Yes.
That was unbelievable.
Nuts on the head.
Yes. A dude that was like 6'8".
Yeah, it was pretty amazing.
Fun to watch.
Him and Zion are two of the best athletes I think we've seen come out of the tournament in years.
Yep.
An Anthony Davis, LeBron James, Shaquille O'Neal mashup in Zion Williamson, and then Ja Morant has been compared to Russell Westbrook and Derrick Rose.
Yep.
It's a pretty fun draft. And then, look at just RJ Barrett, too. He just drops a cool 27 in his first game in the tournament as well.
Obviously people noticed, but everyone was very excited about Zion's takeoff, I guess you could say.
Yeah, absolutely. 507-457-1615 is the phone number. I'm sure we have some new listeners here today listening in for Andy Alman. So don't be afraid to call that phone and win a Squeeze t-shirt. 507-457-1615 is the number. Call during the break if you want your chance to win that t-shirt. Coming up after the break, We have Donnie Nadeau, the sports information director, longtime sports information director of St. Mary's University, and to talk about his long career as well as some St. Mary's sports stories. But 507-457-1615 is the phone number to call if you want to win a Squeeze t-shirt. What is the best way to gear up Townie this year? How about a night of running, dancing, and partying with DJ Charco? That is exactly what Light Up the Night 3K on Friday, April 26th is. A night to exercise with friends and support your fellow students. The event is free to St. Mary's students, and the run starts at 8 p.m., followed by a DJ Charco concert at 9 to 11. Dance yourself into Townie during this incredible event. We'll be right back. Thanks for listening. You are listening to The Squeeze with Anthony Pasquazi and Andy Alleman on KSMR Radio, broadcasting live on 92.5 FM on campus and 94.3 FM in Winona, Minnesota, as well as online at smumn.edu/KSMR. KSMR, Real College Radio. Before we get to Donnie Nadeau, as I pronounce it correctly for once, we are going to take a quick call from Paul in Colorado. Paul in Colorado, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on the show.
Absolutely. So you said you wanted to talk to Andy. Well, go right ahead. Talk to Andy.
All ears.
Well, I want to talk to both Andy and the host of the show. I talked to the show a couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, and you were talking about NFL free agency, and I thought it was a great conversation. I certainly missed the NFL. One of the things that caught my attention was the conversation about the OBJ trade to the Browns. And I agreed with the sentiments that, wow, Cleveland really bolstered its roster by receiving OBJ. And I was struggling to figure out why the Giants did it. You know, when you think about it, it's really not a bad move for the Giants either. They're getting Jabril Peppers, who's a first-round talent. I think we agreed upon that. They get, a first-round pick in this upcoming draft, as well as a third-round pick. That's a lot in return for a team that's rebuilding. So I thought both teams did quite well in the trade.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the one thing I'll disagree on is the fact that you said it was a great move for the Giants because they are rebuilding, when in reality they're not really rebuilding if they're being stuck and saddled with Eli Manning. They haven't really picked a direction. So I don't know if you could technically say they are rebuilding yet. I think once they get rid of that contract and of that quarterback, then yes, you will be very correct.
And I think the trade of OBJ kind of broadcasts what they're going to do in the draft actually as well. They might draft a quarterback, and they don't want their stud wide receiver that has a tendency to kind of act out on the sideline. I don't think they want a rookie quarterback they don't want him in his ear, and they don't want him learning from a guy that tends to be a little bit more dramatic as a team leader. So we'll see.
Fair enough on all that. One of the things that's also getting lost in the equation is what the Browns are also doing on the defensive side of the football, adding Olivia Vernon and so forth. So certainly a big fan of everything the Browns are doing. They're doing enough to be the team to be in the AFC North.
Absolutely, I would agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the call, Paul from Colorado. Stay tuned, and we're gonna start talking to Donnie Neto. Thank you so much for calling, Paul.
Thanks for having me.
There you go. First caller in a while. Of course, it came when we have Donnie in studio for the first time. But for those of you who don't know who Donnie Neto is, he's the longtime sports information director here at St. Mary's University. 24 years. He graduated back in 85. Graduated from here back in 85. A lifer. He's a St. Mary's lifer, and nobody knows St. Mary's sports better than Mr. Neto. So very happy to have him here. I want people to know, I kind of understand just how hardworking you are. I want people to know, what is the average day for Donnie?
Boy, the average day for Donnie, I usually get to work probably 7 o'clock or so. And during the winter seasons, by the time a basketball game is over, it's usually 10, 11 o'clock at night. So an average day is 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It could be 13 hours. It's the nature of the beast in this job. You work when athletics is going on, and I think that that's one of the things that I really enjoy about the job is that you just get to. I mean, I get paid to cover sports, and it doesn't get to be a better job. I love St. Mary's. I graduated from here in '85. Met my wife here. Both of my kids went to St. Mary's, so St. Mary's is a big part of our family, and for me to be able to get to know people and to kind of get to understand what it's like to be a college athlete. I never played college sports. I tried out my freshman year here at St. Mary's, and the goalie that was in front of me at St. Mary's is now in our Hall of Fame, Greg Dick. He was drafted by the Jets after his freshman year. So I kind of saw the writing on the wall and kind of took a different approach and worked a little bit with Don Olson as kind of like their PR guy, the men's hockey team, and it just kind of blossomed there. Left St. Mary's for 10 years. After I graduated, I spent 10 years in the newspaper business around the Winona area. I was a sports editor of the Daily News for a number of years, and then moved to La Crosse Tribune in La Crosse, Wisconsin. This job opened up, and as they say, the rest is history. And 24 years later, I'm still here.
Couldn't pass it up.
It's a great job. It really is. It is a lot of work, and I think that's the thing. It does seem like it's a glamorous job. It does seem like it's just all sitting around eating hot dogs and watching games, but there's a lot of work to be done, and it really fits into my experience as a writer And I graduated from St. Mary's with a journalism degree, so I knew what I wanted to do. And when this job opened, it just kind of was one of those things that St. Mary's never really had a full-time sports information director. So it was one of those things that they said, well, here's the job, knock yourself out. And I was kind of able to create the job and create how I wanted the job to go as I felt I saw it. And now granted, when I started here, there was no such thing as the internet. Cell phones were not available yet. So there were things that were a lot different back when I started than they are now. So the job has really changed from let's get the information out the best we can to now 24/7, 365. We want it now. And, the game ends at 10 o'clock. By 10:15, if you haven't sent out a final tweet or a story, you're behind the times. So the job really has changed in that respect as well.
Yeah. So you have that journalism background, and now you're not a journalist. You maybe people get a little bit confused. We kind of talked about it off air. Can you tell us the difference between writing journalistically and writing as a sports information director for a university?
Yeah, and it was interesting when we were talking off the air, because when I was a journalist, you went and you covered an event and you covered the event. You didn't cover necessarily a specific team. You were covering what's going on. I was fortunate enough when I was working at the Daily News, I covered both the 87 and 91 World Series for the Twins. And so, you got to cover the games that the Twins played. Well, when you're here and you're writing stories about St. Mary's, you're promoting St. Mary's. You're not necessarily just writing a story about the men's basketball game against St. Thomas. You're promoting St. Mary's. So you're always looking for the positive. You're looking for the story you can tell about St. Mary's that will get people to know what's going on, but also to kind of feel like they get to know our athletes, our coaches. And, so that's the difference is you're not just telling the nuts and bolts of what happened. You're trying to tell a story about St. Mary's.
So now, is that you recently added the coach's notebook? Is that what it's called? Is that a reason why you added it? So you can kind of get to know the coaches and get their insight into
exactly. It's a Monday quote book, and really it's one of those things that, and again, as the job progressed, usually back in the day, as they say, us old people say, when you didn't have to have things 10 minutes after an event was over, I would be able to sit down and talk to the coach and write a story after the fact. Well, now with the instantaneous need of information, I don't use those quotes anymore. So now what I do is on Mondays, I'll do a Monday quote book, talk to the coaches, get a couple quotes on how they felt the week went, or maybe for upcoming, with conference openers now this coming weekend for both baseball and softball, let's focus on that. And what do you see, Coach Winicky, what did you think of the weekend in Illinois? So things like that. So yeah, it's just kind of another way to get for people to kind of understand what these sports are going through and rack the coach's brain a little bit so that you can kind of see what they're thinking, because you don't always necessarily get that out of a story in general.
Awesome.
So you mentioned Twitter, the coach's notebook and or Monday quote book, coach's notebook, Monday quote book. Who is in charge of sending out all of those game by game, inning by inning tweets?
That would be me.
Oh my gosh. Is that 100% all you?
Yes.
Wow. It's truly impressive.
Now, I have to say that I'm going to give thanks to St. Mary's baseball today, because there are no live stats today for the North Central game. So they are going to tweet and I will retweet theirs. But this past weekend, for example, baseball was in Carroll Stream, Illinois. And so they had live stats. So I would sit on my couch with my computer, and as the innings went by, I would retweet what's going out or tweet what's going out, and trying to use some graphic ability. So every third inning, I'd send out a graphic with, the hits, runs, and errors and things like that. The biggest change with my job has been social media, because it's added just another layer of things that you need to do. And if you want to do it, and I'm a firm believer in, if you're going to do it, you want to do it well. Yeah. So, baseball's a tough one. Spring sports are tough in that it's just a long time. And, so when they're on the road, people always think, well, everybody's on the road this week. Well, yeah, but I still have to work. Yeah. I've got to get those tweets out, and I've got to write the stories, and I got to post the results and things like that. So it's a constant work as our athletes are going. And with social media, you've got, tweets to get out, then you've got Instagram, and you've got Facebook. And, for, as I always say, for you guys, as younger student athletes and students, you've grown up with social media. It's second nature. I watch you guys text with your thumbs going 100 miles an hour. I'm still hunting and pecking, and I have to learn social media. It doesn't come natural to me, because when I was your age, we didn't have it.
Yep.
So I have to learn Instagram. I have to learn the importance of Twitter and what's a good tweet and what's a bad tweet and what's worth my time and what's not worth my time. And those are things that the job will continue to evolve, because what's going to be the next one? What's going to be the next social media platform that you guys will just say, oh, yep, this is what it is. Well, I got to learn it. I got to figure it out.
Yeah.
And so for me, as you get older, I want to meet you guys where you're at. And right now, social media is where our students are at. So the web and social media are what I have to focus on. And that's very important to me, is to make sure that I get a handle on it so that I can do a good job of it, because, this school is important to me and I want to make sure that I'm not looking silly and I don't make the school look silly.
There you go.
You are listening to The Squeeze with Anthony Vasquez. We're sitting in right now with Donnie Netto, longtime sports information director of this fine university. With you being here for 24 years, you've seen a lot of good teams, a lot of bad teams, a lot of awesome athletes, and some not so awesome athletes. Let's start with the positive, though. What was the most enjoyable team to cover?
Well, yeah, I have to start with the 2000 national championship softball team. I mean, that was we won the national championship. It doesn't get any better than that. But the thing about that is that team was so good that Coach Cheetah is, that in itself is an interesting story. Obviously, you all know that he's Coach Winick's uncle. So that's a neat thing in itself. And that, when Coach Cheetah was here, he was, he took that softball team and really made it what it is. And the best story I can ever tell about that year was they used to, as you guys know, with softball, when they go out and do their warm-ups, they play Bad to the Bone as one of their warm-up songs. And then they'll go on to another song or whatever it may be. Well, when Coach Cheetah had the warm-ups, they would play Bad to the Bone and they'd be done with warm-ups in that 3-minute song. And it was the most impressive thing you could ever see. And there were times when we were in Salem for the national championship that it's a 4-field complex. And there were more people from other fields watching them warm up than watching the games that were going on. It was just absolutely, it was phenomenal. And, that team, you're watching them when they didn't know what to do. They were so focused on the game, on the games, that when the final out was made to win the national championship, you'd think gloves are sailing and people are, they literally did not know what to do. It was like, okay, what's the next game? They were that focused. Wow. And that, they were just, it was all business. And it's certainly the most impressive time that I was here. That team was by far the best. And obviously the only team in our Hall of Fame is that team. So, you got to start with them. But there's a lot of teams that I've really enjoyed working with. Every team we have now has just been phenomenal to work with. Our coaching staffs are great. They're really fun to work with. And I think that, rather than looking at favorite teams, I love taking the spring trip with the baseball team. I used to do that quite a bit until now our basketball and hockey teams are getting better and they're getting into the playoffs. So now I can't travel because it's at the same time. But I used to love going on those trips. I've been able to do some with the softball team, have made a couple trips with the hockey teams. And those are always important. We talk about that with the teams and how important it is for them to get to go on these trips and prepare for the season and kind of get to know their teams. But it was for me too, because then you got to see these people outside of just watching them on the field. You got to know them. You got to stand in the airport with them. You got to, go to dinner with them. And that's always important. It's nice for people to be able to see me as much as I see them, to get to realize that it's not just a name on it's not just a byline on a story, but kind of get to know the person that I am. And, that way it just brings a little more personality to what I get to do. And really, it's a lot of fun just to kind of travel with the teams. I really enjoy that.
Real quick, you did mention that the basketball and hockey teams are getting better. What are your thoughts on us being a few of the select teams in the MIAC to have both hockey teams, have 3 out of 4 teams from the winter sports qualify? Yeah,
it was awesome. And the thing is you could actually I would throw men's basketball in there as well. I think that this was one of the more successful winter seasons we've had in a long time, and really very enjoyable. You tip your cap to both David Foley and Joe Fano, outstanding jobs in their first years. If you think about it, and the thing that really kind of gets overlooked is that they came to school really when you guys did. I mean,
Yeah.
that's when they got
No,
hired.
yeah.
So they didn't have a lot of preparation, a lot of time to really get ready for the season and to do the things that they did. Really, you've got to tip your cap to them and really, they were great seasons for them. Both hockey teams came through when they needed to come through, and it's really great to see them get into the playoffs, get into the postseason. And again, kind of a neat story when you've got the dad coaching the men and, and the son coaching the women. It's you talk about those stories that I get to deal with, and that's another one that's just neat. Is if you look at, you mentioned that I'm a longtime St. Mary's person, but really just look at our staff.
Yeah.
You've Coach Bill Moore at the men's hockey team. He's a graduate, 85 alum. You got
Wow.
Coach Greg Moore. He's a graduate. I don't want to date him. I don't know what year he graduated. But then you've got Coach Miller,
Yep.
softball. She's a St. Mary's alum. Played on that national championship team. Sam Borowski, her assistant.
Mhm.
She's an alum. So I mean, you've got a lot of people who who are alums of this place, and it means a lot to it. I skipped Winnicky. Coach Winnicky's an alum of here. So you've got a lot of people who this is an important place to them. They love St. Mary's as much as I do, and I really think that that's what you need at an institution like this to make it successful. Is we're not St. Thomas. We don't have the kind of money St. Thomas have. We don't the student body that they do. But you need people that are going to buy into what we do have and what we can make. This St. Mary's can be a great school, and our athletics are they're on the move, and it's an exciting time because of that. I think that we're going to see some great things. I think we're going to see some great things this spring.
Yep.
Women's tennis is really coming on now. I really am very positive that they're going to make the conference tournament, which will be 2 years in a row, and be again a continuation of some outstanding things. So I think that St. Mary's athletics, you got Brian Sisson now as the new AD doing some great things, and I think that really we're definitely moving in the right direction, and that's very exciting. It's almost too bad that it's springtime because you don't want the summer because you want to just continue that momentum.
I don't want to graduate when we got all these sports.
Now everybody's
I
getting
don't want to
That's right.
graduate.
But and the Squeeze will be here to cover it all.
There you go.
alongside you. But you mentioned Brian Sisson. What are the just in the first year of his employment here? What are the things that you've noticed that have already changed?
Well, it's just he's a go-getter. I mean, he's come in and he's had his he's got some plans that I think that he realized right when he got here, and he's making those things happen. I mean, our contract with Under Armour is one. I mean, that's a great move by Brian, and an exciting one for us to be branded by a outstanding company like Under Armour and Universal Athletics. So that's a great one right there. And I think that the interesting thing for us is this is really the first time now. Like we've said, I've been here 24 years. This is the first time that we've hired an athletic director that hasn't come from the St. Mary's community.
Oh, wow.
Don Olson was here. Then it was Linda Anderson. Then it was Chris Kendall, who was the VP of student life.
Mhm.
Then it was Nikki. So this is the first time they've gone outside of the St. Mary's community. So there's that adjustment. Brian's never been the athletic director. He was an associate AD at Lewis, but so that he's got a learning curve.
Yep.
We've got a learning curve because it's the first time we don't know who the person was. And I think that's a good thing. I think it's an exciting thing. I know that, Brian's not afraid to ask questions of us.
Yep.
We're not afraid to ask questions of him. This is kind of how we do things. And I like when he says, well, you know what? We're not going to do them that way. We're going to do them this way. And that's a good thing too. And we haven't had that before. Somebody that's going to come in and say, hey, let's try something different and see if that'll work. And so it's, I think it's been great. And I think that he's really going to do some good things for this department.
I think that's about the third time I've heard somebody say that exact thing where he goes, oh, that's the way we used to do things. We're not doing it that way anymore.
Right.
So we only have a couple more minutes here on the Squeeze with Donnie Neto.
Neto.
I'm gonna get Neto. I don't know why it's
so you asked for stories. Since we only have a couple minutes, I do have one March Madness story, and it's first off, I'm blaming Fano, but I picked St. Mary's to go 2 rounds in my free ESPN graphic. Hey, it's St. Mary's. I just couldn't help it. But when I started here, it was probably my first or second year. Back at that time, CBS used to do a player of the game for the games that they televised for March Madness, and then that school would get a $5,000 scholarship.
Oh wow!
For their athletic department. Well, St. Mary's was in the tournament, and the plaque and the check came to me.
Oh my
You're
gosh!
kidding.
No, and I just started. And I opened this thing up. I'm like, I don't know what this is. I have no idea. So I had to literally call the St. Mary's in Moraga and asked for a mailing address. And
Oh
I
my
was like,
gosh.
man, this
That's
would be kind of
awesome.
nice for our department. But yeah, I went to the wrong St. Mary's, and we run into that all the time as a
Yeah.
St. Mary's. But yeah, I got the $5,000 check for an outstanding player, and we weren't in the tournament.
That is awesome. That is
I would have
so
loved
funny.
if you kept it.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
should at
really.
least kept the plaque. Maybe give the check away, but you should have kept the plaque. So there was one request that we had on Twitter from Dean Beckman. He asked me to ask you about two things.
Okay.
One, where are you going to be on vacation this summer if you are
Big
taking
Red.
a vacation?
Okay.
And Big Red, and your push-up. Something about a
Okay.
push-up.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, as people know, with Big Red, every summer my wife and I go on vacation. We're big national park people, and we love to tent camp. So Big Red, my little stuffed animal, goes with us, and we take pictures of Big Red everywhere we go. And he went to Alaska last year. He went to Glacier National Park last year. This year we're going to head southwest, so we're going to go in the New Mexico area, Guadalupe Mountains, and
Oh, wow.
and
Awesome.
so he will follow us along, and I'll have him in my pocket, and we take him everywhere we go, and we get some beautiful pictures, and we take Big Red with us, and it's become kind of a tradition, and I know as Dean follows it pretty well. So thanks a lot, Beckman. And then the push-up challenge, it's just one of those things I started several years ago. I used to be a big weightlifter type person, but with this job, I ran out of time.
Yeah.
So what I've started to do is I do 200 push-ups a day. And in March, I accomplished it I completed 4 straight years of doing it every single day for 4 years. So I'll roll out of bed and rattle off 4 sets of push-ups up to 200, and then go about my day. So that's kind of what I do. That's my health kick. And, I'm going to keep it going. The streak hasn't stopped.
So
So
biceps are.
Well, this was Donnie Netto on the Squeeze with Anthony Pasquesi and Andy Alleman. 507-457-1615 is the phone number if you want to win a Squeeze t-shirt. Coming up after the break, we're going to talk about men's baseball and a little bit about Tom Izzo. But again, thank you so much to the sports information director here at St. Mary's, Donnie Netto, for sitting in with us.
thank you for having me. It was a blast. I'll do it anytime.
Okay, sounds great. I know Alec Rude was a little bummed that he missed out on having you in studio.
Yeah, but it's a good thing because he's playing tennis, and that's
Yes.
where he should be. So.
Exactly. 507-457-1615 is the phone number. We'll be right back. Thank you so much for listening. You are listening to The Squeeze with Anthony Pasquazi and Andy Alleman on KSMR Radio, broadcasting live at 92.5 FM on campus and 94.3 FM in Winona, Minnesota, as well as online at smumn.edu/KSMR. KSMR, real college radio. Awesome stuff from Donnie Neto. Neto. I don't know why it's so hard for me to.
Neto with an N.
Where you at? Come over here, Andy.
You're
Andy
right.
Alleman.
You're right.
You're back in the producer chair. But I don't know why. It's because I've been saying it wrong for so long that now it's hard for me to figure it out. But I'm getting there. Now that I know and I've heard it from the source, I know that I'll get it right eventually.
Meadow with an N.
Yes, Meadow with an N. Donnie Neto. Perfect. But again, thank you so much to him. It almost felt like we shouldn't have turned the microphones off because we just kept talking during the break, and we almost practically had to kick him out of the booth because he just wanted to keep talking. But he said some very nice things about us, and I really can't say enough nice things about Donnie Neto.
Yep.
He's from jump. He was the first, St. Mary's face that I noticed coming to the school last year. He emails you twice a day, every single day. He's writing stories. I mean, he's writing stories that sometimes belong in the newspaper as simply a PR arm for the university. And he's just he's a grinder. He's a hard worker.
Class act.
As he said, he gets here at 7 a.m. Sometimes we're getting those emails at 5 a.m. And we're getting them as late as midnight. I mean, the post games, the pre games. He knows what he's doing. He has a bunch of little helpers. He's great with internships and such. And he's one of the reasons why I felt so confident in starting the Squeeze was because, I knew he would be there to help us along. And I'm happy that he finally made it onto the show. 507-457-1615 is that phone number. We don't have any 16-second Squeeze contestants yet. I mean, I don't have any shirts to give away anymore. So 507-457-1615 is the phone number. If you want to win that t-shirt, Donnie did talk about how the baseball team had a bit of a struggle over the weekend, and that they did. They came into this weekend at a record of 6-4 and have lost 3 straight. They started out with a 9-7 loss against Concordia in Minnesota, Moorhead in a non-conference conference game. So they were against a conference opponent on a neutral field, which makes it a non-conference game. They took them to 11 innings and ended up losing 9-7. The starting pitcher for the Cardinals in that game was Ryan Wolf. And, we were talking earlier, Ryan Wolf is second in the MIAC in earned runs. Well, how in the world is that possible if the Cardinals gave up 9 runs? Well, that's because Ryan Wolf went 8 innings, 0 earned runs. He gave up 3 runs due to errors, but he went 8 innings, 0 earned runs. He walked 2, struck out 6. Ryan Wolf is a junior this year. Very good to see him as a crucial piece of that starting rotation for the remainder of the season, pitching well. I mean, you can go 8 innings in a Division III baseball game. You're going to be in a rotation for quite a long time.
I just remember he had an outstanding game last spring against St. Thomas. I think he pitched a really well game. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I just remember they upset St. Thomas, and it was a really close score, 1-2, and he got the job done for him. And
that week, I do believe he was named MIAC Pitcher of the Week. We had him on the Squeeze, actually, the next week. He's the first baseball player to ever come on the show. So shout out to Ryan Wolf, and nice job this weekend. Sadly, not enough to get the win. But wins and losses for pitchers is one of the most meaningless stats in the history of the world, and I hope you understand that.
Yep.
You do? Okay. I just wanted to make sure. Yep. It is the worst statistic possible, wins and losses for starting pitchers. Jake Kramlinger was saddled with that meaningless loss. He's now 0-2 on the season, which is meaningless. He went 2 1/3 innings. He gave up 6 hits, 4 earned runs, 6 unearned, 2 unearned, 2 walks, 1 strikeout. He also, he faced 10 batters, gave up 6 hits, not a very good showing out there for the senior Jake Kramlinger. But Tyler Stilp, our buddy, who is very willing to come on the show, and I think he will be relatively soon, is having a very good season. We told you last week that he is a first-time submarine pitcher, or he was last season. He's a junior this year. And his pitching coach last season just told him, hey, let's drop that arm angle and make you a submarine pitcher. And that he has been. He struggled a lot with walks last season, but this year, already in 11 appearances, 16 innings pitched, he has only walked 12. So actually, never mind. He's been walking quite a few.
Hey,
quite
baby
a few
steps.
people.
Baby
Oh
steps.
no, that was last season. That was last season. He actually doesn't have any career statistics on the website currently, so that's unfortunate. Well, never mind. He's I promise you that's what he needed to work on. He walked 12 batters in 16 innings last year. This year, he's pitched, I think, close to 10 innings already in quite a few appearances, and he's only walked 2 or 3 batters. So he's striking out a lot more, and that's a pretty good arm coming out of a bullpen for a closing situation. Tyler Stilp, the righty submarine pitcher.
I mean, considering that I don't think he ever threw a submarine before this, right?
Never.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty impressive to kind of come into college as a sophomore and do that. I think that's something to be noteworthy of.
Absolutely. So after they lost to Concordia College in Moorhead, they lost to a team that I know very well, Concordia University Chicago. Concordia, that's the track. That was my home track in high school. That's where all of my PRs came, actually, was that one track. So maybe we should go head on down there sometime this season.
Wouldn't hurt.
So I can, maybe PR again. But Concordia University is a perennial national championship appearance team. I mean, they're nationally ranked very consistently. And we took them, 5-4.
Yep.
Very good game for the Cardinals. Sadly, could not pull it out against the Cougars. I actually kind of grew up going to Cougar baseball. Sounds a little bit weird being from Chicago and having so many other things to do. But, Concordia University Chicago, we actually had some neighbors who were players on the baseball team.
Good.
So, yeah, they rented a house very close to us. I mean, we're maybe a mile away from Concordia University Chicago. So we'd ride our bikes up there, watch the double headers, listen to the walk-up music, and get to see our neighbors. It was pretty cool. So
it's kind of your hometown team right there.
Oh, absolutely. Concordia University Chicago is literally the closest team to my house. So it was, fun to see them go up against Concordia University Chicago. The starter for the Cardinals was the very talented James Jimmer Green, MIAC Rookie of the Year last year, all MIAC, all defensive team. I mean, the superlatives for James Green cannot end, and he's picked it up right where he left off last season. James Green, 6 1/3 innings. He did give up 3 earned runs, and when Andy sat down today, he hadn't heard anything about the baseball games, and I said, yeah, James, he didn't have a great game. And then I go to say this stat line: 6 1/3, 3 hits, 3 earned runs, only 1 walk, and 13 strikeouts for James Green. He is leading the MIAC by 7 strikeouts already early in the year, and he has a K/9 of 14.29. He is literally the Clayton Kershaw of the MIAC this season.
Jimmer the Machine Green.
Jimmer the Machine Green. I like that. So James Jimmer the Machine Green.
There you go.
Perfect. He's got 2 nicknames, but very good showing from him. Sadly, again, just Cardinals could not get enough offense. Tyler Stilp, again, only 2/3 of an inning, 1 hit, no walks, and just coming out of the bullpen well. Yep. Cody Keel did blow the save, an inning and 2/3, 4 hits, 2 unearned runs, 1 walk, and 3 strikeouts. So 16 strikeouts in total for the Cardinals against the Concordia University Chicago Cougars. That dropped their record to 6-6. And then the final game that happened yesterday, they are currently playing right now against North Central, was against Wheaton. They lost that game 12-5. Eli Morrison started the game for the Cardinals in that one, and the Cardinals got out to a quick start, 4 runs in the top of the first inning, but Eli could just not hold on. He only went 3 2/3, 10 hits, 8 runs, 7 earned, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts, and his second loss of the year. Luke Gilbertson, 2 1/3, 2 earned runs, and Andy Kramlinger, not a very good weekend for him, 2 innings, 2 earned runs as well. Not a lot of strikeouts, not a lot of good pitching in that last game.
To note, though, these teams are very tough. They were talking about how big of a tournament this was just because these are teams that are making the tournament consistently for NCAA D3 playoff baseball. And these were games that they want to use as resume builders, but they're also you take the positive ways that they are they're learning a lot about their team and they're playing tough teams really well. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I read a comment on the YouTube live stream. Where can I buy merch? Nowhere. You cannot buy merch anywhere, but you can win merch on the 16-second squeeze, 507-457-1615. You like that segue?
I do.
That's what's going to get me a professional radio job, was that segue right there.
There you go.
507-457-1615. So the Cardinals are currently playing against North Central College. As Donnie said, there are no live updates for that game, but hey, go check out the SMUSID Twitter page. That's Donnie's Twitter page to check out if those Cardinals are beating the North Central College Cardinals. Cardinals v. Cardinals. Really something just to take from these first few games. As you said, these are very tough opponents. They haven't started Mayak play yet. That's when we can really see if James Green can continue to be the quality pitcher that he has been. See if this offense can really start picking up. Andy Tepp, Joe Costello, the anchors of this lineup. Let's see if they can compete against the great teams in the MIAC, St. John's, St. Thomas. They go right up against St. John's, right into the fire. Is their first game in Collegeville, and that's next Saturday.
Yep, and they're going to be throwing Jim for one of those games, for sure.
Oh, I hope so. I mean, you have Jimmer Green in your bullpen. You're going to throw him against the best opponents in that rotation. We do have a call. We're just going to take it right on air. Hi, what's your name and where are you from? You're on the squeeze.
My name is Chris, and I'm from Crystal Lake.
Chris from Crystal Lake. I'm guessing you're on the 16-second squeeze.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you got that. You got that little segue, and you felt the need to call.
Yeah, I love this segue.
Perfect. So, do you know how the 16-second squeeze works?
Can you give me a quick run through?
Okay, so I'm going to ask you to name as many of something as you can in 16 seconds. And then you're going to list as many of those as you can. You're going to then go up against Andy, our producer, who will be in a room where he cannot hear what the category is. And your margin of victory will decide on whether or not you win the squeeze t-shirt or not.
All right, perfect. Sounds good.
Okay, so you have 16 seconds to name as many universities in the March Madness tournament this season. 16 seconds, 3, 2, 1, go.
Let's go. Duke, Syracuse, St. Mary's College, for Coast of that pick. Notre Dame's in it. University of Virginia Tech, USDF, LSU, Michigan State, Baylor, Buffalo.
Done.
Dang it.
So
I was going to say North Carolina.
9. You got 9. I counted
All right, not bad,
9 March
not bad.
Madness teams. Now,
That's pretty good.
yeah, 9. So we'll see how Andy Alleman does. Stay tuned and keep listening if you win that squeeze t-shirt. Thanks for calling.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so I hope you didn't hear, but Chris had 16 seconds to name as many March Madness teams in the tournament this season. Andy, you have 16 seconds to name as many March Madness teams in the tournament this season as you can.
Duke, Virginia, Syracuse, North Carolina, Wisconsin, Marquette, Baylor, Murray State, Marquette, I said Marquette, Michigan State, Minnesota, Louisville. I don't know. Kentucky.
Done. Okay, well, that was past 16
All right,
seconds, so
fair
you
enough.
got 12. Chris had 9. Andy has 12. That gives Chris a margin of victory of -3. So, Chris, if that remains the number one margin of victory, you will win that squeeze t-shirt. 507-457-1615 is the phone number. We still have room for 2 more contestants over the course of the show, so don't be afraid to call in if you want to take down Chris from Crystal Lake. 507-457-1615 is that phone number. Before we go to break, we are going to go to break very soon. We're going to talk about Tom Izzo. Tom Izzo, very, prestigious longtime head coach of Michigan State basketball, one of the greatest coaches of all time. He found himself in a little bit of hot water this weekend in the first game of the tournament against Bradley. Aaron Henry, a freshman, came back to the bench, and Tom Izzo absolutely laid into him, screaming at him, pointing at him. He had to be, kind of restrained from his own team. And honestly, then the whole firestorm happens of coaches shouldn't do this. And, Tom Izzo was out of line and the athlete shouldn't be treated that way. But then you get the other pushback of, society is too soft. You guys are a bunch of snowflakes. And this is just, masculinity. Yeah. If you're going to be a man, you got to get yelled at by your coach.
Yep.
The thing that I took from it was basically this. Look, Society is trending towards a place where that style of coaching is going out of style. You don't see very many coaches anymore on a high school, college, and definitely not in the pros level where they scream at their players because that's how they feel they're going to get their message across. So even though it is trending in that direction, I'm not sure I agree with it because of this. Every coach, and we're going to talk to Nick Larson in just about 20 minutes. He is a coach, so we'll talk to him about this. Every single coach has a different style of coaching, and it is their decision on how they want to get their message out there. Now, as long as they are not physically abusing their players or even mentally abusing their players on a daily basis, and there is a line that a coach can cross in that situation. But we're not talking about that with Tom Izzo. We're talking about Tom Izzo being very angry with his freshman player because they're only up by 2 against Bradley. He's just mad.
Yeah.
And he believes that the best way to get in Aaron Henry's head and to make him play the way he wants to make him play is to scream at him. Now, for anybody to come at Tom Izzo and say that he is out of line, I think is honestly ridiculous. Andy, what do you think?
Well, a couple of things I took from this. One, that kid really had to have messed up for him to be that mad at it. But people look at the initial video and they're just shocked. I guarantee you, one, he apologized to him after the game. He probably owned up to losing his temper. Two, this is a guy that works with those athletes every single day.
Absolutely.
This is more than just a coach-player relationship. I'm sure, when you're with these players that much, you kind of take on a fatherly role to them. So I'm thinking that, I hope Aaron didn't take it to heart, and that, no coach is perfect, and they worked really hard to get to this point in the season. And, it's just a high-pressure situation, and sometimes you just lose your cool. It happens.
Absolutely. And you don't, the problem that it almost happens every single year where this news cycle just reiterates itself. And it happens almost every single year around this time because of March Madness, because you have all of these passive viewers, people who haven't really watched college basketball that much, but now they're in B-dubs and they're watching it with their friends and they have a tournament, or a bracket pool, and they're finally getting into it. And they see this old white man yelling at a young black man, and they get a little heebie-jeebied out. And it does make sense why that happens, because they're not used to seeing that thing occurring.
Yeah.
But it happens all over the place, all over sports. It's not just college basketball. We run into some track coaches who absolutely lay into their athletes when they don't do what they're supposed to do.
Well, have you seen Nick Saban? He does
Oh
the
my gosh,
same exact
absolutely.
thing. Look at his teams every single year. It's a thing in sports. That's just how it is. And yeah, it's kind of an older style of coaching, but it's clearly a style that's effective. You have Michigan State, that's a number 2 seed in the tournament, expected to make a nice deep run, and you got Nick Saban, who's consistently winning national championships. So
and Coach K is the same way. So is Bill Belichick. So
Coach Calipari especially too. I've seen him light into his players. And you know what? They're studly every single year. It seems to work.
So the thing is, it seems to work, and it is just one approach. It is just one coaching approach. Look at Coach Fano here. The only players who I heard bad things from about Coach Fano this season were players who are no longer on the team.
Exactly.
Because they couldn't take it. They couldn't hack it. So then they started talking bad about Coach Fano. Well, that makes me feel that they're a little bit biased. Just because Coach Fano rubbed with them and they couldn't take it anymore doesn't mean Coach Fano is not a good coach.
Exactly.
Because you know what happened? They won 8 more games than they did last year.
Yep.
And they won 6 more conference games than they did last year. They won their first conference game in 2 seasons. They swept Gustavus for the first time in 37 years. A lot of that does have to do with Eli Cave, but you know what else it has to do with? Coach Fano working these guys to a point where they're finally doing work. They're putting in work, and you saw what happens when you put in work. The only way to get your athletes sometimes to do that work is to yell at them. It's different with every coach, every team, every athlete. Sometimes it rubs, sometimes it's really good and it works.
Well, having a coach that tries to be buddy-buddy with everyone, I've ran into that in high school. It's just not. I just feel it's not a good coaching style. You're not their friend. You're their coach. You know what I mean? You're there to be a fatherly figure, not a best friend. And sometimes athletes need that. They need some guidance. They need someone to have an arm around their shoulder, someone to comfort them. But you also need to be coached. You're here to be an athlete. That's part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are going to take it to break. 507-457-1615. Maybe you have an opinion on coaching, a coach you've had in the past who maybe went a bit too hard, or a coach you had that maybe went a bit too soft. 507-457-1615 is the phone number. Also, if you want to win a Squeeze t-shirt, we will take a few more 16-second Squeeze calls. So 507-457-1615 is that phone number. I did advertise that we were going to have Coach Nick Larson coming in at around 12:15, but he's here early and he looks like he really wants to come in studio. So we're going to bring him in after the break, bump him up just a bit. 507-457-1615 is the phone number. Coming up after the break is Nick Larson. What is the best way to gear up for Townie this year? How about a night of running, dancing, and partying with DJ Charco? That is exactly what the Light Up the Night 3K on Friday, April 26th is. A night to exercise with friends and support your fellow students. This event is free for St. Mary's students, and the run starts at 8 p.m., followed by a DJ Charco concert at 9. Dance yourself into Townie during this incredible event. Thanks for listening. We will be right back with Nick Larson. You are listening to The Squeeze with Anthony Pasquazi and Andy Alleman on KSMR Radio, broadcasting live on 92.5 FM on campus and 94.3 FM in Winona, Minnesota, as well as online at smumn.edu/KSMR. KSMR Real College Radio. Before I intro Nick, I'm just going to read a text from Coach Niels Anderson about Nick that I received last night when I told him that you were coming on the show. Sorry, I'm out of breath. Went to the bathroom during the break. He's amazing. Hardest grinder, most organized dude I've ever met. And I don't think there's a better way to describe Coach Nick Larson. Coach, thanks for coming in today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about your career. You may look like you're very young, but you're actually rather old. So you've been in track for quite a long time. Tell us where your career trajectory has taken you to be the assistant track coach here at St. Mary's.
Yeah, so I started coaching right away out of high school when I was in college. So I did my undergrad at UW La Crosse, and I was studying to be a teacher. And I thought, what better way to get involved with school and kids and teenagers than coaching right away? And I love the sport. So I talked to my high school coach and said, hey, can I come back and just help, be around? He said, absolutely. So that freshman year, I started coaching. I was assistant track coach for 2 years. Also became an assistant cross country coach, even though I never ran cross country. But coach asked me, he just needed an extra hand. So I said, sure, I can help with cross. So I did that. Became head coach after a couple of years, coaching track, girls head coach. This is all in Onalaska, Wisconsin, at the high school. Did that for 8 years. Moved to Shakopee when I got a teaching job. Shakopee, Minnesota, southwest suburb. Became the head girls track coach there, and eventually became the head girls cross country coach there as well. Did that for 2 years, 4 years. And then starting in 2015, fall of 15, I became a volunteer coach at the University of Minnesota with the women's program, cross country and track, helping with mainly distance, but also sprints, hurdles, jumps here and there as well. And then this past summer, applied for the job here at St. Mary's to be the assistant track and cross country coach with Niels and Cody, and it's been great.
So did you have any ins with Niels and Cody from the past?
I didn't know Cody. I actually coached against him, but unknowingly, I didn't really know who he was because I coached the girls. But I knew Niels from my time coaching in the MVC while he coached at La Crosse Central. Again, he was the boys coach and I was the girls coach. So we weren't really competitors against each other, but we knew each other and we always got along. Our staff in Alaska got along really well with the coaches at Central, just a good group. And so I could root for him and he could root for me because we were kind of on opposite ends. I was girls, he was boys, but he's a great dude. Obviously, you guys know him super well. As optimistic and outgoing and as personable as you can meet, a good guy. So yeah, I've known Niels for a long time.
So you went from high school to D1 and now down to D3. Obviously, your responsibilities at each level have been drastically different. But what do you think is the biggest difference in high school all the way up to D1 and then down to D3? What's something that you've noticed with that kind of weird arc?
Yeah. So I mean, and anybody that hears this, anybody that knows that works with distance runners knows that distance runners are the same, whether they're a high school kid, a Division I kid, a Division III kid, or a professional. They're all the same where they're very high achieving. This is stereotypical, but they're very high achieving, very organized, very goal oriented. They work really, really hard. That's what distance runners do. So working from with high school kids to Division I kids to Division III kids, distance wise, it's basically the same type of person. It's just obviously the talent level from a high school kid to Division I athlete is different. And then obviously from Division I to Division III, I wouldn't say that there's less talent. There is, let me rephrase this correctly. The excessive amounts of talent at the Division I level are much higher, but there's still a ton of talent at the Division I level or Division III level who are capable of being at the Division I level. It's just not as deep at the Division III level, if that makes sense. Yep. So there are Division III athletes who would be national, or maybe not national champions, but All-Americans at the Division I level. But they're much fewer and far between, as opposed to the Division I level where, obviously they're really, really talented. So I would say the athlete themselves is pretty much the same in terms of their personality. What's different working at the Division I level versus Division III level is the expectations of the athletes. And so because of if you're on scholarship, the expectations that you are committed to doing this sport and your academics, and that's about it. You can't do other things and do other things well. Whereas at Division III, the whole point of Division III is to be a well-rounded or have more opportunities for our student athletes. You can't do that at Division I and be successful. The kids that try to do multiple things at the Division I level aren't successful really at any of them. They're good, but they're not great. And so if you want to be a great Division I athlete, it's school and your sport, and that's really about it.
So we were just talking about coaching. You had heard it in the hallway over there. You say that, you're different than Tom Izzo. You're very different than Tom Izzo. You just said that stereotypically your athlete is high achieving. They have a high motor. They want to do their best. And I will agree. Most distance runners are that way.
That fits the mold.
Oh, for sure. And, maybe an 18-year-old basketball player at Michigan State who has aspirations of going to the NBA won't have as much motivation to do the granular little things. So he may need to get on them a little bit more than you do. Can you maybe go into, maybe you agree with that, maybe you disagree with that, and how do you handle individual athletes differently?
Right. Yeah. I mean, like I said, and every individual athlete's different. Every coach is different, like Andy was talking about earlier. Again, I didn't see the incident with Tom Izzo. I've been on the road for a couple of days, but I've heard about it. And I mean, Tom Izzo is as respected as any coach in the country. I mean, there's no arguing that. So I have to think that he made a decision, whether that was consciously or somewhat subconsciously in that moment. He made it because he knows that kid, he knows his team, he knows what they need to do to be successful. And so I don't fault Tom Izzo at all for that. I don't think the kid faults Tom Izzo at all for that response. And like Andy said, again, that kid probably did something pretty drastically wrong for Tom to, or Coach Izzo, I don't know. I don't know.
First name basis.
For Coach Izzo to blow up on him like that. And so, on my coaching style, you guys haven't been around me super long, but you know well enough that I'm pretty easygoing and pretty calm.
Yeah.
And if I were to blow up at that like that, you would know something was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like that you would just know that. And it doesn't happen very often. Same with Niels. If Niels blew up like that, you would know something was drastically wrong. It wouldn't be, that's not his style. It's not my style. It's not Cody's style. But I don't think it's Tom Izzo's style either to blow up that aggressively on a regular occasion. So I don't fault him at all. I don't think the team was holding him back. I think they were in a response saying, "Hey, we got this, coach. We can handle this too." So that's kind of my perspective on it. I've had coaches that were a little more drastic. That didn't sit well with me. That's just not how I respond to being coached. I responded to my best coaches were the ones that talked to me like a human being and talked to me with respect and sort of on equal treatments or equal playing field. That's how I responded. So I try to do that with my athletes too. I try to respond to them as individuals, and knowing that some kids need a little kick in the butt, some people need a pat in the back, and both methods can work. Just depends on who the kid is.
And how difficult for you personally is it to find out what works best for those kids?
I mean, it's conversations. It's seeing one thing that you do and seeing how they respond, and obviously never going too extreme right away, but trying to be a little bit more harsh early and see what happens, or try to be a little bit more encouraging early and see what happens early in the sense of the relationship with the kid, and see kind of how they respond, and then adjusting accordingly based on what you've learned from that experience. So I think you just have to kind of take it a little bit by little bit and see what happens. Again, my style is pretty encouraging, I'm going to lift you up and not break you down. I'm going to break you down by doing hard workouts and see how you respond that way, but not berate you. I'm in more of the I'm disappointed in you as opposed to I'm angry at you, and get them to guilt trip a little bit. So, and
in your, I mean, you are young. I made the joke that you're old. You are rather young, but in your long track career, it's been, half of your or a third of your life, basically.
15 years. Yeah.
Almost half of your life.
Yeah, pretty cool.
So, have you come across a coach or maybe a singular moment where you thought to yourself, whoa, that guy or that girl just went way above and beyond what she or he should have done?
In respect to like blowing up like Coach Izzo did, or again, not a ton in the track world. I guess there was one experience when I was still coaching high school. I won't say where because who knows if they're listening or not, but I remember an incident with an athlete who it wasn't so it was a boy. So like I said, I coached girls for a long time. So he was indirectly my athlete, but not exactly my athlete because he was on the team, obviously. But he was a high school kid. He wasn't, high school boys are immature. Yeah, right? I mean, they're immature. And so he said something. He was cheering for a team to win a race. It wasn't our team, but it was against the team that we were pretty strong rivals with. So he was cheering for the other team to lose to this team that we didn't really care about. And the coach from the team that we're kind of rivals with saw that and did not respond well to it. And he basically verbally attacked our athlete, which when we as our staff saw it, we saw that we're like, that's unacceptable. Like if you have a problem with our athlete, you come to us and then we'll talk to them. I think it's not appropriate for a coach from one team to go to an athlete from a separate team and have that interaction. So that was probably the one that stands out the most. And we had a conversation with that athlete afterwards and said, hey, we understand what you were doing and you were sort of jabbing them underhandedly. It's not acceptable. We know you weren't trying to be malicious, but you can't do that. And so that's maybe the one experience that we had, or that I've had. That was just, a little too much.
Okay. I mean, I think we all have some stories, and Andy and I might get into it a little bit later. You said you were on the road this weekend. You were down there in Illinois. Can you tell us a little bit about your trip to the best state in the United States?
Well, I did have to travel through the best state to get to Illinois. That being Wisconsin. But yeah, I was at the Top Tines meet in Bloomington, Illinois, at Illinois Wesleyan, to see a bunch of high school kids compete. It was a long weekend. We started on Friday afternoon at about 3:00, the first meet, and then there was a meet yesterday morning, and then a separate meet yesterday afternoon. And I was there until the end, so I saw the last 4x4 that got done at 7:00 or something. So it was a long, long day, but I got to talk to a lot of kids, a lot of coaches, gave out a lot of information about St. Mary's. Surprisingly, there were a ton of 2019 graduates, so current seniors in high school, who aren't committed yet to go to school, and it's March 24th. Like, okay, so I was jumping on those kids as much as I could to try to, just plug St. Mary's and say, hey, we'd love to have you, blah, blah, blah. But it was exhausting, man. It was a lot of work. So I think next year, Niels and Cody and I will all try to go down together, so that it's not me trying to talk to every single kid possible, but we can kind of divide and conquer a little bit, and Niels can take his events, and Cody can take his events, and I can take my events, and we can accomplish more. But it was a good experience, and if we get just one kid out of the trip, then it was worth it.
It's worth it,
So,
yeah. And what a guy. You made it right back here on the squeeze.
Yeah, I got home at 1:30 last night. Or this morning, I guess.
So I'm curious, after a really long day at the meet, how did you cope with that 4.5 hour drive?
Oh,
Did we jam some music? Did we listen to some podcasts?
5.5 hours.
5.5 hours.
Yeah, I listened to this podcast. I listened to the Monster podcast. It was about the Zodiac killer.
Oh, wow.
Which is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Because I don't know a ton about the Zodiac, because obviously that was before my time. It was more Niels' time. But it was that's an old joke. It was interesting though, but it was also kind of creepy because it was 11:30 at night, and I'm listening to this about the serial killer. But it kept my interest. The only time it got difficult was when I crossed the river back into Minnesota, and then I started to get the I need to wake up stretch. So
yeah, it is. I mean, is there cruise control in the van?
Well, it was a school car. There was cruise control, but sometimes you don't want cruise control.
Yeah,
because you're like,
you lull yourself to sleep.
Yeah. So there's no radio stations in Illinois either, man. Like, that'll suck. What's up with that?
I don't know. I mean, you got 670 The Score. It's the best sports station in the world. So.
I couldn't find it.
507-457-1615 is the phone number. If you want to win a Squeeze t-shirt, that's the 16-second squeeze. 507-457-1615. This has been the Squeeze with Nick Larson. Any final words that you want to tell the peoples?
Hey, it's been fun being here. Like, this is cool. So I'd be happy to come back sometime, and go Cardinals.
Yeah, go Cardinals. Okay, stay tuned. We'll be right back with a sports city draft. Andy and I will flip a coin to see who wins Boston and then go on from there.
Let's get it.
507-457-1615 is the phone number. We'll be right back. You are listening to The Squeeze with Anthony Pasquazi and Andy Alleman, sitting in for Alec Rude on KSMR Radio, broadcasting live on 92.5 FM on campus and 94.3 FM in Winona, Minnesota, as well as online at smumn.edu/KSMR. KSMR Real College Radio. 507-457-1615 is the phone number. Only one 16-second squeeze caller today. You're giving Chris from Crystal Lake, Illinois, a pretty easy T-shirt with that -3 margin of victory. So, yeah, easiest T-shirt Chris has ever won. 507-457-1615 is the phone number. Okay, we are going to do a Sports City draft. The way our drafts work, they go 4 rounds deep. They are snake drafts. And in this case, there is a Zion Williamson in this draft of best sports cities. There is clearly a number 1 pick that both of us will pick if we get the number 1 pick. And that city is Boston. So this is the sports or the squeeze draft lottery. Here we go. We each have a 50% chance of winning. Andy, because you're the guest producer, call it.
Heads. Oh,
Tails. So I get the first pick in the squeeze draft, but then you get picks 2 and 3 because that's how snake drafts work. So with the first pick in the Squeeze Sports City draft, I pick Boston. Now, why do I pick Boston? Well, we talked about it a couple weeks ago, maybe a couple months ago at this point. Boston, if you are a 10-year-old born in Boston 10 years ago, you have something like 11 championships across the 4 major sports. You have literally not lived a life or a year on this planet without going to a Boston sports parade. The Celtics, the Red Sox, the Patriots, and the Bruins. So hard to beat that sports city. Boston is my first pick.
Put it in perspective, they had a parade for baseball in November. Does that sound right? And then a few short months later for the Patriots in February.
Absolutely. And now the Celtics are going to make the playoffs. Don't know if they'll have a championship.
We'll see.
The Bruins, I believe, are going to make the playoffs. And next year, the Red Sox are going to be one of the best seeds, and so are the Patriots. So it's just
year in and year out.
Perpetual dominance from the city of Boston. I've never been to Boston. Have you ever been to Boston?
I've never
Man, that is someplace. I this summer, I've told myself I want to go to, I want to travel just a little bit. Boston's not going to make the list this year because it's a bit far away. You can't drive to Boston. But, Boston is definitely a bucket list city for me.
I know our buddy Tyler Still took a trip out there.
Yes, he did.
November-ish.
Yep.
Went to watch the Vikings play the Patriots, went to a Bruins game, and he said it was an amazing experience. So, yeah, that's something I would like to do. I don't think I'd want to visit there unless it's sports season, though. If I can see a couple of sports games in a weekend, yes. Otherwise, I don't really know what it's about. I mean, you get the Boston Tea Party there.
I mean, all the beautiful universities,
Yeah.
All the awesome movies. You can go see Landmark. It's a pretty city.
Okay.
Boston is, if there was one place I would live other than Chicago, it would be Boston. I love Boston. Yeah. Well, Chicago's the best. But with the second pick in the first round of this Squeeze Sports City draft, Andy Alleman is taking
Los Angeles.
Los Angeles. Now, I have some quarrels with you here, but I want to hear your reasoning.
Well, you've had the storied Lakers franchise that's won multiple championships. I think they have the second most in NBA history behind the Boston Celtics. You got 2 teams apiece. You really, unless you're really having a down year for sports, you can kind of go and watch a good team just about anywhere.
I guess you're right.
Yeah, the
2 baseball teams, 2 basketball teams, 2 football teams. Yeah.
2 hockey teams, one hockey team. Okay, and they won the Stanley Cup a few years.
Yes, they did.
That.
Yep.
Okay. Lakers won their last championship 2010, 2009. You got 2 football teams there that both made the divisional round at the very least. The Chargers were 12-4, Rams were 13-3, 2 of the best teams in the league. Looks like I believe the Clippers are in 7th or 6th place in the West right now. You got LeBron James and the Lakers. I think it's a pretty, not to mention the Dodgers making the World Series. I think it's a pretty good sports environment.
I see but Los Angeles, I guess it's fitting that they're the second pick in this draft because they are the second best city. Like I wouldn't have picked them with the second pick. Actually, I wouldn't have picked them. So I'm happy you picked them.
Yeah.
But because right now, if you're looking at this city right now, forget about the past, whatever.
Mhm.
You have the Rams and Chargers.
Yep.
Chargers are probably on the decline. You know, Philip Rivers,
see.
we will see. The Rams, second best.
Yep.
Dodgers haven't won a championship in 40 years.
Yep.
Second best every year. The Angels, pretty bad, but they do have the best player in baseball, Mike Trout.
Yep.
The Lakers, brutally bad, terrible, but they do have LeBron. The
And they will get
Clippers
better. Yep.
have never won anything. Yeah, so the Kings, I think they're the worst. They're the only team eliminated from the playoffs this year.
Okay.
That's in hockey. So yes, they have just the pure amount of sport is something that I didn't take into account that you said.
Yeah.
They do have more sports than anybody or more teams than anybody else. So I guess they belong in that
And
top
what puts in perspective is you got quality teams, but you also have quality players. I mean, there's cities out
That's
there that
true.
would kill for one or the other.
Absolutely. Okay, with the first pick in the second round,
Okay, yeah.
Andy Alleman is picking. Don't do it to me.
Houston.
Thank God. Houston. What is your reasoning for Houston?
You get the Rockets that are consistent playoff contenders just about every year. We're about a Chris Paul pulled hamstring away from being NBA champions, in my opinion. The Houston Texans have an exciting core of players. Made the playoffs last year. Disappointed a little bit, but they are on the up and up. Houston Astros just won the World Series the year before. So I think that it's a really solid 3-team trio right there. I don't know if they have a hockey team. I'm not sure.
I'm the wrong guy to ask.
Great. Okay. But yeah, I think that's a pretty good 3-team core all
Yeah.
around.
Absolutely. Texans, Rockets, Astros. Yeah, you know what? I'd almost put them over LA. So you got two very quality picks there.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
With the second pick in the second round, Anthony Pasquesi picks Chicago.
There we go.
Okay. Besides the homerism that is occurring,
Yeah.
literally homerism. My home is in Chicago. I picked Chicago because, just hear me out.
I'm all yours.
The Bears,
Up and up.
not only up and up, they could have won the Super Bowl last year. Like they really could have won the Super Bowl last year. And they only got better this offseason. He's only going to get better. We will have a conversation another day. They have one of the best football teams in the NFL.
Good.
The Cubs, although they are projected to go 79 and 81 or whatever the math is, says they're not going to go whatever. They're one of the best teams in the major leagues.
Yep.
The White Sox, as much as it pains me to say it, have put together a pretty nice rebuild.
Yep.
The Blackhawks in contention for a playoff spot, and the Bulls are about to be put in a situation where Zion Williamson or Ja Morant or RJ Barrett will be a Chicago Bull next year. So not only is it the greatest city in the United States, also the fourth greatest sports city.
I will add, it's been a tough couple of years there for Chicago sports. You had your Cubs, but other than that,
Not much, but see, the point is with Boston winning everything,
yeah.
there's a pretty big drop off. So
No, you're
after Boston, every city is pretty much the same,
Right.
except for the next city that I'm picking. That is the first pick in the third round, and that is Philadelphia. Philadelphia is my city.
Give me the reasons.
Reasons: Eagles, they're awesome. Sixers, they're awesome. Phillies now have one of the best baseball players in baseball, Bryce Harper. And the Flyers, I'm the wrong team to ask. But with the second pick in the third round, Andy Alleman, who are you picking?
Ooh, it's gonna be a tough one. I'm gonna go with the hometown bias. I'm gonna go the Milwaukee area right now.
Oh, yes. That's dark horse.
Yep, it is a dark horse, and I don't want to lump the Packers in there just because they're not in
You
Milwaukee.
can't.
Yep.
It's not allowed.
Yep. So you look at the two teams there alone. Bucks, number one team in the East, have the best player in the NBA, in my opinion.
MVP.
MVP.
Hands down.
And you got the Brewers, who were a game away in the World Series. So you look at that. It's been fun because it's usually been the football team that's been really good, and the baseball and basketball team has been really bad. Kind
What
of
football
reversed. The Green Bay Packers. But it's kind of their fortunes have kind of reversed a little bit. Just kind of interesting to watch. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Milwaukee is a dark horse. Not only is it a great sports city,
nice city in
but
general.
it's a nice city in general. Just want to point out per capita, more shootings than Chicago.
Oh, yep.
We don't really like
Very-
talking about that
yeah.
with when Des is talking about how great Milwaukee is.
It's a sport. This is
He
a
makes
sport.
fun of
This is a
Chicago.
sports show. Sports
Chicago's
show.
pretty much better in every category than Milwaukee. That's okay. We don't have to talk about it right now. But with the first pick in the last round of this Squeeze Sports City draft, Andy Alleman, who you picking?
Ooh, okay. Well, let's see. I would probably want to go with.
Yeah, that noise is great for radio. Keep that
Sorry.
up, please.
My fault. I would have to probably go with New York.
New York. Blech, blech. I was hoping that they were going to remain out of this draft, but I guess when you go 8 cities deep, New York is going to make it. What's your reasoning?
You go two teams deep in just about every sport. It's kind of hard. I mean, New York's had a rough patch for a while. But other than that, it's kind of hard for you to have 6 to 8 teams consistently bad.
Yeah.
So
Actually, they have the most sports because they have 2 hockey teams as well.
I guess, yeah, they have 8
They have
teams.
8 teams.
Look, the bad fortune's got to end eventually.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
eventually.
Look at the Yankees.
Knicks are going to have someone good.
I don't know. But I
We'll
mean,
see.
you say that, and then I start saying it and start agreeing with you, and then I say, well, look at the Yankees, and look at the Mets, and then look at the Jets, and the Giants, and the Knicks, and the Nets. Like
Yeah.
they're really
Yeah.
none of them do anything. for me.
Other than the Giants bringing home a couple championships a couple years ago, it's kind of been a rough stretch.
And obviously, the Yankees, whatever, 29
Yeah.
championships. Who cares?
It was
This
a
is-
good 3-year stretch there. I mean, there was
Oh, yeah.
good from 07 or 08 to 2012. It was a pretty good stretch, but
It's over now.
Yeah.
So that's all that matters. And with the final pick in the Squeeze Sports City Draft, 507-457-1615 is the phone number. Maybe you agree with us. Maybe you disagree with us. We want to hear your opinion. We had an opinion from Paul in Colorado for the first time in maybe 2019 that we actually had an opinionated caller. So thank you so much, Paul. Don't be afraid to, put that phone to your lips next week, or maybe just right now, 507-457-1615. But with the final pick in this draft, I'm torn between Pittsburgh and Atlanta. Now, Pittsburgh has the better team.
Yep.
The best team out of all of them, and that's the Steelers.
Yep.
Then they have the Pirates, and they also have the Penguins, which is arguably,
Sure.
a very good team. And then what's the last sport? Pittsburgh. They don't have a basketball team. Okay, so they only have 3 teams. And then you look at Atlanta. Now, the biggest thing for Atlanta is the Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
Yeah,
Now,
pretty sick.
that has to come into account with this conversation because that is one of, if not the nicest stadium in the world.
Mm.
They also have the Falcons, who might do well this year. Probably not.
We'll see.
They have the Hawks, who aren't great. The
Up
Atlanta
and coming.
Hawks, up and coming.
Fun to
but
watch.
Never good enough to win a championship, and
Yeah.
and this team isn't either. But the Braves, man, the Atlanta Braves this
That's very
season.
true.
If I wasn't a Cubs fan and I wasn't such a homer, I'd be picking the Atlanta Braves to win the National League pennant because I think they're going to be that good, and I think Atlanta is going to take that last spot over Pittsburgh for me. So
Good call.
Atlanta is my final pick in the Squeeze Sports City Draft. Andy came out with an okay squad. Los Angeles, Houston, Milwaukee, New York. Surprising, honestly, to see Milwaukee above New York. That was
Better teams.
Yeah,
Simple as that.
I guess so. And then Anthony, myself, Boston, Chicago, Philly, Atlanta. You have some dark horses and you might get some votes just because there's some biased people who follow the Squeeze who probably like you more than me. But I think I have the better team. Can you agree?
Bigger cities, yeah, I'll do that.
Bigger cities, and I have Boston. I
Yeah.
think Boston is going to catch a lot
Oh
of
yeah,
eyes.
Boston. I'll
So,
give you that. That's
yeah.
fair.
Boston has what? Fenway Park. Chicago has Wrigley Field.
Yeah.
Atlanta has Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Philly, Citizens Bank Park.
Yeah.
I think I win in the stadium arena.
Fair
Do
enough.
you know who else could win in the stadium arena if they did what I told them to do right now?
Who's that?
St. Mary's.
Yeah.
You like that segue? That was too much. That was too convoluted. 507-457-1615 is the phone number. But what am I talking about, Andy? What do I want St. Mary's to do? Well, if you look at our little show prep over there, I wrote St. Mary's Dome.
Yep.
This is something that I've been thinking about for the last maybe 2 months.
Yep.
St. Mary's, if you're listening out there, which you are, I hope. Don't invest in a grandstand, because who is that really helping? Nobody. It's just going to make recruiting a little bit easier, and we can host bigger events. But in reality, those big events don't bring much revenue into the school. I mean, if we host MIACs, most teams who host the MIAC championship lose money. It's just great for publicity.
Yep.
So instead of investing in a grandstand, which we've been promised a couple times, and
Yep.
it's going to happen eventually,
Eventually.
instead of resurfacing the worst indoor track in the MIAC, which it is, instead of doing that and spending money there to kind of put a Band-Aid over the issue, why don't we invest in a blow-up dome to put over our beautiful 8-lane track and our beautiful soccer turf? Not only will it benefit the track team, the baseball team, the softball team, the soccer team, every single outdoor team, not only will it benefit those outdoor teams, it will also be able to be used to actually generate revenue.
Yep.
Look at how often that facility in Rochester is used.
Mm.
Every one of those teams has to pay
Yep.
to use that facility.
Yep.
It's a static cost.
Yeah.
It's a one-time purchase. Obviously, there is maintenance, but St. Mary's, if you're listening, I haven't really crunched the numbers. I'm not qualified to do so. Instead of investing in these things that are going to look pretty or are going to benefit your teams just slightly, invest in something that can truly put St. Mary's athletics on the map. Instead of, we could host the indoor championships every single season if we had this dome over our track. We wouldn't be able to host outdoor track meets anymore, but you and I, well, not you anymore, but I would have a great practice facility to use 24/7, 365.
Mm-hmm.
And so would the baseball and softball teams. Could you imagine track being on the track for 2 hours while baseball is having their practice in the dome? Softball could be practicing at the same time. Instead of practicing at 9 o'clock at night, they could be practicing at the same time in the rack alone, where they don't have to put the nets down. They don't have to worry about track runners, running around the track. It's such a good idea. I haven't thought about many of the cons because I think it's just a great idea. Maybe you have some that you can talk to me about right now, or maybe you do, 507-457-1615. But St. Mary's, please at least consider to put a dome over a beautiful facility that you already have.
Where do I start? I would say I do like the idea. It's a great idea. I like the whole, you can rent it out kind of thing. I'm sure Winona State would love to have some of their sports teams working there or practicing there in the off season. I don't know the numbers either. I know it'd probably be expensive.
A cool mill, at least, I think. But a grandstand is going to be a cool half mill.
Yeah. No.
And
I gotta, how do I want to put this? St. Mary's sports moves a little bit slow sometimes. Let's be honest with that.
But what did we hear about Brian Sisson? That's the way things.
True.
That's the way we used to do things.
But
we're not doing it like that anymore.
I know, but and once you think that a project that's been in the works for how long would take priority, and I'm not saying that I would love to have a dome. That would be amazing, but. And I think you can remove. I don't know. I think you can remove it. I think Rochester can do that, or Concordia St. Paul can do that.
All of them. You put it in when it's winter. You take it out, so we could still host outdoor track meets when the snow melts. But just look at us right now. We don't have a meet this weekend, when we should, because there's 4 inches of snow on our track.
Yeah, and so I guess to say it, I think it would be more realistic to invest in grandstand, but I do really like that idea. It's a really good idea.
And I mean, that's the biggest thing for me, the biggest logical thing. The grandstand would be great. As I said, it'll be great for recruiting. It'll be nice to have locker rooms out there close to the track. But in reality, it's not benefiting us on the track. It's not benefiting us on the field. It's not doing anything for the athletes themselves. This, if you want your athletes to be as good as they can be, this is the way to do it. This is the way to up their training and let them train as hard as they want for as long as they want.
Yep.
At at this university. So 507-457-1615 is the phone number. That was a pretty good radio segment, I think. That was pretty good. 507-457-1615. We do have a t-shirt to give to Chris with a -3, not a very hard margin to beat. So 507-457-1615. We'll be right back to talk about one of, if not the greatest, baseball players in the history of the sport. I'm going to ask Andy a couple questions, see if he knows the answer, to just reiterate how good Mike Trout is at baseball. That's after the break. What is the best way to gear up for Townie this year? How about a night of running, dancing, and partying with DJ Charco? That is exactly what the Light Up the Night 3K on Friday, April 26th is. A night to exercise with friends and support your fellow students. The event is free to St. Mary's students, and the run starts at 8 p.m., followed by a DJ Charco concert at 9. Dance yourself into Townie during this incredible event. Thanks for listening. We will be right back. You are listening to The Squeeze with Anthony Pasquazi, typically with Alec Rude, but today with Andy Alleman on KSMR Radio, broadcasting live on 92.5 FM on campus and 94.3 FM in Winona, Minnesota, as well as online at smumn.edu/KSMR, KSMR Real College Radio. We only have 10 minutes left. Man, we've been talking your ear off today, but hey, that is our job. So if you live under a rock, maybe you didn't hear that Mike Trout signed the largest contract in the history of sports, 430 million buckaroos over the course of 12 seasons.
Wow.
And then something weird emerged after that news came out. And that weird something that emerged was people saying that Mike Trout is overpaid. Now, Andy, I'm just going to ask you a quick question. I don't want you to name any statistics. I don't want you to, I don't even want you to think about what you've looked up today or yesterday. 3 days ago, if I asked you to describe Mike Trout, honestly say what you would have said.
Straight slugger, one of the best players in the league.
Okay.
In the MLB.
That's what most people would say.
Yep.
One of the best players in the MLB.
The best player in the MLB.
Okay, well, you just changed it there because I kind of biased you. So you said what most people would say. And if you say it like that, $430 million sounds a lot like Mike Trout is overpaid. So I get it. And you're fine. You're part of the majority, which is a good place to be in most cases. Mike Trout is not one of the best players in the major leagues. He is the best in the major leagues, and it's not even close. Mike Trout is one of the best baseball players of all time. Mike Trout, Babe Ruth, Ty Cobb. It's not even close how good Mike Trout is compared to the rest of the major leagues. He already has 64 career WAR. He had a 10 WAR season last year. And for the last 5 seasons, he's had over 10 wins above replacement and has been number 1 in the AL in wins above replacement. He's been the best player over the last 5 years consistently. He has a career OPS plus of 175. Now, to those of you who don't know what that means, an average OPS plus is 100. That is the average player in baseball. An above average player, 120 to 130. A great player, 130 to 140. An all-star, 150, 160. An MVP, 170 to 180. He's averaging an MVP season at 175. Mike Trout is the greatest baseball player in the history of baseball, and we're watching it, and nobody seems to get it. Nobody seems to get it. I mean, we just heard from Andy what most people would say about Mike Trout.
Yep. Oh, what's that?
Say something.
I mean, just looking at the stats, multiple MVPs. I mean, he was in the running for the award. I don't know how many times exactly.
Every season.
Every season. Okay, there you go. Every season. I mean, how many home runs? Like, I'm looking here in 2017, he had about 150 home runs plus and 150 plus stolen bases. That's pretty impressive before his 26th birthday. So not only can he hit, he can move himself. You know what I mean?
Not only is he, I mean, see, you keep going to home runs because that's what most people care about in baseball. Most passive viewers of baseball, which you would consider yourself a passive viewer of baseball.
I would. Yes.
He's not just a home run hitter. He is the greatest baseball player in every single category. Base running, hitting for power, hitting, fielding. There's nobody better than Mike Trout. I was trying to search the top 10 current wins above replacement leaders. I can't seem to find it. I had found it earlier, which is why I wanted you to talk. But I just want to say who the current leaders in wins above replacement are.
Yeah.
By memory, I believe he's 5th. Albert Pujols, Miguel Cabrera, Clayton Kershaw, and Ichiro, I believe.
That sounds right.
And then Mike Trout.
Yeah.
Mike Trout has only been in the league for 6 seasons, and he's already amassed the WARs of more than Robinson Cano and Adrian Beltre and Ichiro and all of these all-time greats. And no one seems to notice.
I think a part of it is that he plays for the Angels.
Yeah, and he's never been to the playoffs. Never won anything, basically.
No. I mean, and that's a part of it. Whether you can look at the stats, and yes, he is great, but he's just had a horrible team around him. You know what I mean? And it's a lot different from something like basketball, where you can drag a team to the playoffs like what LeBron did last year. Baseball really is a team sport. He can't pitch and field and hit at the same time. So
absolutely. And one last thing on Mike Trout before we move to who may be one of the best basketball players ever. The most similar batters through age 26 to Mike Trout. All 8 of these guys are in the Hall of Fame. Number 9 is Andrew Jones, and number 10 is Albert Pujols, who will both be in the Hall of Fame. Frank Robinson, Ken Griffey Jr., Mickey Mantle, Hank Aaron, Miguel Cabrera, Orlando Cepeda, Mel Ott, and Eddie Matthews. Guys, if you don't know who Mike Trout is, please learn who Mike Trout is and watch the Angels every chance you get this year. When the Angels, the NL Central plays the AL West this year, so we get to see Mike Trout this season. Watch him. go to Miller Park and watch Mike Trout, because you can tell your
Okay.
kids one day, I watched Babe Ruth play, because Mike Trout is the present day Babe Ruth. Okay, I'm done with Mike Trout. I'm sorry, no one really cares about it, but you should. Zion Williamson, tell me, give me the lowdown on Zion Williamson, please.
Well, when I see Zion Williamson step onto the court, I was trying to think for a while, who does he remind me of? Because there's someone, and you know who it is, Anthony? Khalil Mack.
Oh my gosh, you're
Am
right.
I right? Yeah,
Did you think of that yourself?
I did.
Oh my gosh, you're kind of right.
He looks like
He
him.
looks like Khalil Mack.
I mean, there's a video surfacing around Christmas of Khalil Mack in a basketball jersey, and it doesn't look that much different from Zion
gosh,
Williamson.
You're so right.
You can look it up.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
He looks like Khalil Mack, except he has the vertical of Derrick Rose.
And he's got about 4 inches on him. Yeah, Zion Williamson, I mean, he's going to be the number one pick without a doubt. I think that he's going to cruise through this NCAA tournament, and them and Duke are going to bring home a championship just because he is that great of a player. When they struggled during the regular season, it was because he was out, because he literally tore through his shoe. That's how much torque he put on that shoe. I mean, I don't know what else you can say about him. He's unbelievable. He can pass, he can shoot somewhat. I mean, it's not like this dude's just straight like assaulting the rim. There's a lot more to his game than that. And, you're going to get in the NBA, and he's just going to continue to develop his game. He's going to be scary.
I have 2 takeaways from Zion Williamson, 1 negative and 1 massive positive. The 1 negative I'll say is that he's a bit of a tweener.
Yep.
He's only 6'7".
Yep.
It's crazy to say he's 280, 290,
Yep.
and only 6'7". So
Yep.
he's going to have a bit of trouble guarding the, small forwards, the quicker small forwards.
Bigger power.
And he's
forward.
also going to have a problem guarding large power forwards, taller power forwards. No one's really larger than Zion. So that's the 1 negative. He's a bit of a tweener.
Yeah.
But other than that, he's one of, if not the greatest athletes that we've ever seen on a basketball court.
Yep.
And the best thing about him that I've noticed over this course of this season is that he loves basketball.
Great kid.
We opened the show with me saying John Morant disappointed me yesterday with his showing on the court.
Yeah.
He looked uninterested. He didn't want to guard anybody. He was yelling at his teammates. Zion Williamson has had every chance to quit on Duke. He got hurt. He's going to make millions of dollars in a couple months.
Yeah.
He could have dropped out. He could have stopped playing. He had more than enough reason to. He had enough people saying that he should.
Yep.
You also have CBS Sports having a Zion cam and people freaking out about it because he's not getting paid. But then he comments on it and says, look, my mama told me you can't worry about things you can't control.
Yep.
This kid understands his place. He's not complaining about the fact that he can't make any money.
Mhm.
He's also not saying, why am I here? He's making the best out of his situation. He wants to win a national championship. And what that is telling me, what that means to me is almost more important than the fact that he's one of the greatest athletes to ever be on a basketball court, because he wants to be there. You know that you're going to draft this guy and he's going to put as much work in as Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Yeah.
You know that he is massively talented and that he wants to work at it. And that is what makes him, to me, the perfect number 1 draft pick.
Well, and not only that, I saw a really interesting segment where he actually doesn't want to play in a large market. He wants to keep it low profile. And that tells me, okay, this kid's really putting his nose to the grindstone. He's not afraid to work hard, and it doesn't matter about the media and the big lights to him, which is kind of ironic because he'll probably get drafted by New York and then
Chicago.
Or Chicago. And then, but then he might even end up in a small market because he might get traded for Anthony Davis.
Absolutely.
We'll see.
507-457-1615 is the phone number. I don't know why I said it because we only have 1 minute left in the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much to Andy Alleman. I think you've earned yourself a spot on next week's show. So as long as you're willing to come out of the bullpen, I'm
There we go.
going to put the old right hand up and call you in. Thank you also to Donnie Neto. I'm getting it.
There you go. You
Donnie
got it.
Neto,
You got it.
sports information director here at St. Mary's. He said that he'd love to come on again, and we loved having him on. So that's a great relationship that I'm happy we have fostered. And then thank you to Coach Nick Larson, a great guy, soft-spoken dude. And he just, I don't know.
Knows his stuff.
He looks like
knows his
he's
stuff.
1 year out of college, but that man has so much experience. It's honestly ridiculous. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will be back next week from 11 to 1 o'clock to talk more March Madness and any happenings that are going on in St. Mary's athletics. And maybe we'll get an update on the St. Mary's Dome. Maybe we should start a social media platform.
He's so committed to this.
I'm so
everybody.
committed to
He's
this.
So
I
committed.
might take this to people. I'm honestly on board with my own idea.
Baby steps.
Baby steps. This was The Squeeze with Anthony Vasquez and Andy Alleman on KSMR Radio, broadcasting live on 92.5 FM on campus and 94.3 FM in Winona, Minnesota, as well as online at smumn.edu/KSMR. KSMR, Real College Radio. Thanks for listening, and we will be back next week.
See ya, sports world.